So I'm going to be combining cold colors, but not like cold colors in a dark way, with warm colors, right? But I'm also going to play with brighter values. I'm not going to create something that is dark because it's a happy memory. So the first thing that I would do is kind of grab the whole thing and kind of give it a little bit of a warm temperature. So the colors in the back there, I'm going to push them towards red and yellow. Let me do like a control B right here. Let me do the same for that tree. Push the yellow colors and the red colors like this. And basically everything is going to be on that kind of color spectrum, making everything warm like this. And then finally, yeah, those bolts right there. All right. And to kind of start this, um, I'll be using a multiply layer. Right, a multiply layer is with a multiply layer is it's really easy to kind of shadow things, and you can actually learn a little bit of process with this. You know what? I'm gonna use a texture brush. Let me see about this one. What I'm gonna do is again, instead of using like a cold color, I'm going to actually use something that is slightly warmer, like a purplish color. It's cold, but it still feels warm. And if I turn this into a multiply layer, it's exactly what I will get. And I think I'm gonna just again make some sort of sunset right here. Let me add the cast shadow of this tree right here. Let me create a few cast shadows for these windows back here. It's just a simple scene. It's just like some sort of bunny waiting for the bus to arrive so it can go back home. Maybe it was the last day of work. Maybe it's the last day of school. Everybody's graduating. And this bunny is kind of thinking about all the good memories that it made with friends in school, right? Well, just, it shadows like this. First, draw the shadow shapes on this layer, right? And of course, I would have the shadows right here as well, the bottom portion of this. And what I actually want to do right here, now that I have like this main shadow shapes, is actually kind of lock the layer and add a little bit of bounce light, which is actually going to help us to add a little bit of a warm tone. The whole thing, like, look at this. Of course, I'm going to be exaggerating this sort of color setups. You can definitely make them a little bit more realistic, right? Have to 100% stick to something that is like extremely purple. I'm just exaggerating here for the sake of the demo, right? Let's take a little bit of the extreme purple colors out. Let me make the bounce light right here much warmer like this, a little more saturated. I'm still looking for saturated colors because it's a warm memory, right? And I'm gonna even actually add a little bit of a cast shadow right here as well, like a little bit purplish, like this, right? Now, let me do the same for this fence right here, right? At this, probably first unlock this layer and then use the purple color to kind of make it in shadow right now. Multiply, make it dark like this, just kind of following that shadow that we have, maybe two purple layers. Let's, make it a little bit warmer. This is in shadow as well. Of course, we're going to have the cast shadows right here from that bus stop, maybe even a little bit of cast shadow from this signs right here, right? Let me merge this down and bring it all back into masking mode. All right. Now, what I need to do is also, let me first shade this. Let me shade that tree as well. For the tree, let me again unlock that layer, unclip that layer, and then add a little bit of shadows right there. And the colors, by the way, the colors of this tree is already warm, right? So what I'm gonna do is just kind of keep the warmness using a warm shadow like this. Be closer to that color, maybe even a little bit of multiply layer, a little bit of the purplish to start, right? gonna simplify this right here. We're not close to the end. At the end, you're gonna see how this is going to look. We're just kind of shading things, but already thinking about color, right? I can go ahead and make it even more warm, especially at the bottom right here. And I feel like for that cast shadow, like back there, maybe it could be like slightly darker. Be more, kind of give a little bit of contrast and then the nice overlap of that tree, right? And then let me merge this down and then add the clipping right here. Of course, now we need to do that buzz stop. And for the buzz stop, again, let me kind of unlock it. And again, play with the multiply layer. I just love using multiply to just create this like quick color blockings and quick mood tests, So over here, I'm going to, again, use a very warm color. And let me just add a little bit of a cast shadow right here. Like the character could be entirely or just, partially in shadow. Just draw right here real quick. This could be in shadow. Maybe just portion of the character is in light. Maybe a little bit of the leg, a little bit of the belly or something, This whole character is mostly in shadow. Maybe a portion of that is in light. And here, again, I'm going to add this purplish colors. Let me lock in the multiply layer. Play with those purplish colors right here. Spread it right here. And then a lot more orange at the bottom. So sort of like intense bounce light. Look at that. We're mostly finished. We still need to add a little bit of a volume to these guys. So let me just kind of lock this layer. And over here, I'm going to, I can lock this one, use like the purple color, like right here. And then we're mostly done. Of course, what I need to do now is emphasize all of that. And I'll be doing this with a color dodge. Again, pick a very orange, like warm color and start to really go in with the color dodge. Now, like the sun is really, really illuminating the whole thing. Look at that. It's almost kind of overexposed, right? We can, add it right here. I like this kind of saturated transition from light to shadow with this warm color. I just love it so much. Maybe erase here. Look at that. Very warm. It feels kind of nostalgic. And let's save this one, right? And let's make like a dark one. And you're gonna see like how my value choices and my shadow choices and my lighting choices are gonna definitely decide the feeling of this. So let me merge this down. Let me grab this and place it right here. We can compare that later. And then let me turn this off and let me turn this on. And now feeling is like a dark feeling, right? It's something that is scary. And let's say this character is like late at night. It's afraid for its life, right? Maybe waiting for the bus and maybe something is lurking around. But so the first thing that I would do right now is, again, grab the whole thing and push it to a bluish and cold color like this, See that I already got my base colors, something that is much colder, right? Did this with the fence. I don't want it to be extremely bluish. This one could be as well. The road right there. This. And the last thing is the character right there, right? So I will start by basically making everything dark. And I think to make my life easy, I'll actually just merge down this whole portion just to make my life easy. I'm going to unlock this layer, or actually you can just multiply on top of it. And then I will be getting rid of the details. Remember, when we are looking for something that it's like gives us fear, I don't want to see all the space in between things. I don't want to see how, like, where something starts, an object starts, where the object ends, right? So I'm going to grab like a gradient here and really make this dark, the whole thing much darker. And then I'll grab that fin so I can actually, just make it completely dark like this. I'll press Control U, then make it totally dark like this. Maybe I'll add some fog later, but just kind of setting up the whole value of the scene. For this signs, I want to add a multiply right here and make it really dark. Why? No, I don't want you to be thinking about what that sign says. It's just that shape, right? It really is just about that shape. And over here, you know what? I'll make it even darker. All these areas could be dark. You don't really see where things start or where they end. You just have a little bit of hint right here, right? So let me merge this down, and now we have the character to play. And over here, I'm going to place the lighting in a interesting way. So what I'm going to do here is just unlock this layer, kind of unclip the layer, and then add a multiply. And first, I will make the whole thing dark. It's just filling the whole thing with a bluish color. Probably could be even darker, right? Something could be like this. From the top down, to make the top portion of that dark. And then what I would do, I'll kind of create this sort of light shapes right here, as if we had just a little bit of light, both in the character's head and in the character's kind of bench where it's sitting. It's just a little bit. The character is going to feel like it's kind of trapped a little bit. And in here, I could kind of erase that multiply, but I want the light to not be as strong here as it is right here. So I'm going to just raise by pressing Ctrl L the value of that multiply, a little bit right there. And I'm going to make this soft in a minute, but I want to add a little bit of a light just right at the top here, right? And then I'm going to create a little bit of a kind of light setup right here. I also to selection. What I'm going to do now is add this light. Just a little bit. So the character is isolated, right? And maybe it's probably could be a little bit more saturated. I could add a little bit of a blur. It's all a Gaussian blur a little bit. Maybe erase some of that on the sides. Maybe the light is stronger just at the top. The character is dark. You don't really see the character's face, the bottom is darker, right? I think we can definitely use darker values right here to kind of emphasize the fear. So strong cast shadows around the character. To make you really feel kind of isolated. You just see yourself. You see nothing else around you, right? And over here, probably can actually erase this, make it a little bit softer. And then again, kind of erase that. Now you're alone, right? And maybe we add a little bit of light on the street. So just going to select this, and then a little bit here, and then a little bit right here on the street, right? And erase this just a tiny bit. Right? I could play with some color values, and I still feel like we see a lot of what we have back there, right? So I am going to raise the stakes and make it even more dark, right? So I'm going to make it darker right here, and then really, really starts to kind of lose a lot of what you actually see. And then I can bring it back if I want, add a gradient right here as well, make it dark. You kind of stop seeing some of that fence as well. You just see a little bit of the base of the building right there, maybe a little bit of that tree, right? And you're really, really alone. And what I like to do in situations like this, when I have a painting that I'm, creating something that looks off like this, just merge all of this to simplify my life. So I have this, the character right here. What I actually like to do is then bring back a little bit of that of the elements. Just mark this. So we have by using a little bit of like fill light. If I want to see some of that fence, maybe at the top of the character, right? Add a little bit of like bluish light at the top of that cabin, and maybe a little bit of like a old light on the moon right here on that pole. Again, a little bit of that moonlight in the edges of that fence. Still want to make it a little bit dark, and sometimes I won't even show anything. But whenever you're designing something, you need to experiment, right? Like I could easily add a little bit of like a moonlight at the top of this tree. I could play a little bit with some sort of atmosphere like behind that tree. You know, I kind of select kind of around that tree. Oh, I think I did the wrong selection. 1 second. There you go. Maybe I could, let me press Control H to hide that. Then maybe add a little bit of an atmosphere there, a little bit, maybe make it like much more bluish. And sometimes what you're going to be wanting to do is actually adding atmosphere to emphasize a few pointy shapes. Sometimes that's where the trick is going to lie, like really just showing the shapes of things that could be a threat, you know that atmosphere right there. And there you have it. I know it's very simple. Of course, again, I could go back and keep on adding like subtle hints of that building back there, maybe something like this, a little bit here, maybe a little bit right here. But that's going to depend on how much drama you want to create, right? So let's kind of merge this and compare with what we have before, right? So let's merge group and look at the difference. Completely different story. Same location, same elements, but different colors and different values. And we have something that tells like a completely different story, right? One bunny is waiting at the bus, is waiting for the bus, and maybe is thinking about the future. Remember the friendships that he made in the school, all the good memories, and the parties, and all the fun stuff. And the other is completely afraid, in fear, and alone and isolated, and you know maybe sad, maybe depressed. I could, if I duplicate this, look how interesting is this. If I kind of duplicate this, and then even, I don't know why I have this portion right here, just delete that. And if I press Control V and play a little bit with the colors, if I make something that is like reddish like this, maybe yellowish like this, it could be a different tone, maybe more purple, it could be extremely aggressive like this, or I just love to do Control B's like this and kind of play with the colors, because you can do subtle changes. You can instantly feel the difference of what it feels like, right? I'll actually just duplicate this one. Let's play with the colors. So now Control B, and let me see what we can do. Maybe something that is even colder like this. maybe if I bring the values up a little bit, like pressing Control L like this, it could be like your regular night, or it could be like more foggy night. You see, by changing a little bit of the values, a little bit of the saturation, you can actually create nuance. You can actually create a different feeling, you know. Of course, I cannot make a happy scene out of this one, but I can grab the elements that are similar to other dark moods and maybe just change the color and have a completely different mood. And the same I could do with this bunny, right? Maybe with this other painting, maybe I just grab this one, and if I press Control L and I explode those values, and actually maybe get something that is more like a daylight thing. Instead of having bluish colors, I'll just, purplish colors, I'll just make it like mostly bluish like this. I'll then grab the shadows and make it like this. Look at that. All right, it's different. It has some similarities, but it's different, right? Well, that's it for the mood class. The next few classes are going to be related with more like storyboard and story related concepts. And then we're going to have a full class on thumbnailing. Oh, by the way, we're going to choose a story because it's going to be the basis of the final painting that I'm going to have for the classes, right? So we're going to choose a story and we're going to kind of do thumbnails for that story, right? I think you're going to like it. All right, see you next video, and I hope you like this one. All right, see ya.